Good afternoon. Welcome to GEMAC Voice to a Million. And today he's going to be talking about social media: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and all the rest. But probably something there that I'm missing, but I don't think so. The important part is that GEMAC will not miss it. And I will pass the mic now to GEMAC. The mic, the voice is yours.
Thank you very much, Yuri, for that wonderful introduction. Hope everyone's doing well today. We're going to dive in. We are getting down to the stretch here. This is one of the final sessions of this series that we're doing. We have one more, and two more, but really in terms of content, just one more. And then the last one, will be pulling it all together. I need to do my disclaimer, as I always do with these things. This series is not intended to give you every single thing you need to do about digital marketing, need to know about digital marketing and do. It is intended to give you an overview, a 30,000-foot view, if you will, of what you need to know. If you're a business owner, that should be good enough for you to be able to go hire the right people and not fall for scams and whatnot, because there's a lot of that in this industry, unfortunately. If you are an entrepreneur and you're kind of bootstrapping and going along, it should be enough to give you a roadmap of what you need to learn. And you can then either go take individual courses or seek the information that's available for free on the internet. So that's the intent. You're not going to be able to walk away and just go do everything, but you will be able to walk away and put extra work in there and figure it out. So, as I said, this is one of the final sessions in this series. And those of you who've been with me all along, or you have watched the videos afterwards and you're here, you should be starting to see things come together. When we first started, if you remember, we talked about digital marketing or internet marketing being able to separate those into two pillars of traffic and conversion. We talked about conversion is what happens essentially on your website. Traffic is driving people to that website in order for the conversion to happen. And we spent a lot of time going over various things. One of the pieces of traffic, one of the important pieces of traffic, of generating traffic towards your website, is social media. Now, social media comes in all kinds of shapes or forms. For those of you who are my age or older, you'll remember things like Friendster and all kinds of various things that came and went. And uh, we're here in the world of Facebook and Instagram and Twitch and Twitter and uh, Snapchat and there's so many things that just come and go, and there's some that stick around. So what I'm going to try and do today is, rather than going into individual platforms and trying to dig deep into those individual platforms, as I always do, I'm going to try and share strategies with you so that when a sort of winning social media comes along and you want to leverage it for growing your business or whatever you have happening, then you understand how to go about it. You understand how to figure out whether this is for you or not. And then if you decide to go about it, you'll understand what methods to use to do it. Because the general guideline is the same. It doesn't matter what the social media is, that the purpose is the same thing, and essentially what you end up doing is the same thing. Now, this, like the past 2 or 3 sessions that we've had, is contingent on the previous sessions. You need to have gone through those. If you're watching this video, I strongly recommend that you pause this, go and start watching the series in order, and then get here. So this makes a lot more sense for you. However, if you don't have time and you need to get something going quickly, I suggest at least for you to watch the one we did on client avatar and the one we did on content creation strategies. Those two are very, very important to this session. The the third one that's kind of important is the one that I did right before this one on video, right? So I said content, following content creation strategies, video is very important, and you'll find that it's useful when in the discussion that we're having today. So we talked about the strategy of how to pull content together, and those of you who were around will remember or watched these videos will remember I suggested that you have some main topics for a month, for example, and then you break down into weeks and days and so forth, right? So you have that content ready, you have that big piece of content. Let's say you shot a video that is 10 minutes long or 20 minutes long, whatever, half an hour long, whatever the case may be, and you end up going in and chopping that up and being able to use it in pieces, in bite-sized pieces, to generate it and give it out to your audience. So the things that are important are, you have to have understood who your audience is in order to have created that content the way that so that it's useful to them. Now, the social media platform, the first thing you need to do is you need to decide whether or not you want to use this particular social media platform. Is this social media platform useful for your audience or not? Okay, there we go. So, for example, if the age group that you're targeting is, let's say, 12 to 18-year-olds, 12 to 17-year-olds, using LinkedIn as a social media platform is probably not a very good idea. They're probably not there, right? But Snapchat chat might be, TikTok might be, right? This is, you got to research and see who lives on these platforms that you're targeting. The Facebook used to be very, very strong, but if I talk to my kids today, and my kids are teenagers, they'll say, "You're old, Daddy. Nobody's on Facebook anymore." Right? That's literally the sentence you hear. Nobody's on Facebook anymore. I'm like, no, there are a lot of people on Facebook. Nobody on Facebook. So what they're telling me is their friends are not on Facebook, right? So if I'm trying to target that demographic, I'm in the wrong place, right? But you switch over to Instagram, something very interesting happens. Now, you do have that audience on there to the point where they even use it as a messaging platform, right? So instead of text messaging each other, instead of having group chats on text message, they have it on that platform, right? So my point here is not which one's which, because that could change, right? I don't want this. My intent with series has continuously been to provide evergreen content, and I suggest you do the same thing when you're generating content. You don't want your content to live on social media, on the internet as a whole, and then someone comes across it 4 years from now and says, "Oh, this is useless now, it's too old," right? Generally, you want to try and keep your content evergreen, meaning speak in a way, share your content in a way that no matter when people come across it, that content is still useful. So you have to talk about principles, you have to talk about guidelines, you have to talk about rules, you have to talk about human behavior. Those are things that do not change. In general, they stay relatively constant. So already identified who your target audience is by doing your client avatar work. When it comes to social media, your work involves doing your research and finding out who is engaged on each specific platform, right? So if you're looking at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn, which are the examples that we're kind of working with today, you got to look and see, does my audience live on this platform? Do they spend a lot of time on here? Do they share on here? Do they work on here? Do their are their friends on this platform as well, right? So you got to do that work before you're able to do anything else with it. The next thing that happens is the method by which you're going to share, right? So you look at, again, an example of whichever you take actually right now. If you take Facebook, Instagram, they're all, this new thing of stories has popped up with all of them, right? It used to be a Snapchat thing, and now it's migrated over to all these other platforms. And you see that statistically, if you look at it, people are looking at stories more often than they're looking at posts. That's why you see a lot of people post on their stories saying, check out the new post that I posted, right? Because they know people are not going through their feed, they're just looking at the stories, right? This is a strategy that if, I don't know, a year ago, somebody was teaching and they would not be able to share this strategy, right? Because it didn't exist. So you can't, it's not something you could have taught. I'll just wait a moment for that noise to go away, or I can mute though, I think. There we go. Okay, so the strategy has to be engagement, right? What we want is engagement. So if you're, remember, I've always taught you to look at statistics and adjust statistics and numbers and adjust your strategy as a result, right? Based on the sort of go through a deduction process to figure out how you need to change things because of whatever the numbers are telling you, right? So if this thing, for example, as an example, stories is introduced and you're looking at your numbers, you see that the number of people who are looking at your stories is much more than the people who are looking at the general posts. Then you start thinking, what do I need to do in order to expose my posts to the people who are looking at stories? And that's where that strategy comes from. Let me put up a teaser about my post on my stories, right? What if you want to promote your video? Same thing. You can take a little snippet of the video, right? Remember, if we're looking at Instagram, for example, we've talked about this previously when we talked about video. You have 15-second videos that are stories. You have 1-minute videos that can be posted as a post, and then you have IGTV videos that can sit there. That can be a very, very long video, right? So if I'm taking a Toastmasters speech that's 5 to 7 minutes, what am I going to do? Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. So our goal, first of all, if we go back, our goal is to drive the traffic to our website, if you remember that, right? So what we ultimately want to do is we want people to go on our website and watch the video there. That's the ideal. That's what we want to do. So if I take the video, and forgetting about YouTube for a minute, I'll come back to it because the subscription mechanism of YouTube makes it a little bit different. But if I'm talking about the rest of the social media, I have the ability to take a piece of that video as a teaser and post it on my stories, and then have people go to my website to watch the full video. If my general intent was to get people to go do something on my website, because remember, on my website, my lead generation mechanism is on there, that the whole email marketing stuff comes from that. There's like, these are all tied into each other, right? So it's not just a matter of getting more hits on my video, it's the entire traffic strategy. So you take the content that you have, you post it on your website, and then you take bits and pieces of that content and you post that on social media, letting people know that if they want to see the full content, here's a link that they can go to. There are, with some of these platforms, such as Instagram, there are limiting factors. They don't allow you to put a link underneath the post. You can type it in there, it's not clickable, which sucks, right? So if I said, hey, go check this out, the rest of this video you can watch here, or even if I just put an image up of, let's say I did a video on the importance of drinking water throughout the day, right? And I put a picture of a glass of water, and underneath it I wrote, I just published this awesome video about the importance of drinking water, I can't link it. So what I have to do is say something like, the link is on my profile, right? The link to this blog article, to this vlog, to whatever you want to call it, is on my profile. So they have to take one additional step and go click on that, which is less likely to happen than having people actually click on the thing. So those are, if your numbers go up, for example, I don't remember exactly what it is for Instagram. If you do a story, it gives you the ability to link at the bottom through the story to your content. So if you pull up while you're watching it, if you pull up, it will go on to that page. But the numbers of your followers have to have gotten to a certain number for you to have the ability to do that. So that's not available to everyone, right? So with that in mind, knowing that our ultimate goal is to drive traffic to our website, you have to put the work in terms of thinking strategically of how do I lay out my content so that people are motivated to go to my website. It is that idea of don't give them the whole pizza, give them one slice, right? You give them a little bit, you make them hungrier, right? They want more, and they hopefully come to the website and engage with the content there. And once they're on the website, remember we have that lead capture mechanism, which promises something, right? Promises something that's along the lines of what they've already consumed. Meaning they, let's say if it was the water example, for the series could be something like, learn how to lose weight by just moderating your water or something, right? I don't know, I'm just making stuff up as we go along, right? But the point is, at that point in time, now you've got their email address and you have the ability to pull them into your email marketing and whatever. If you're selling anything at the end, then it goes, they're in your funnel now, right? So the message here is, think about your audience and understand the social media platform that you're using. Let's take another example. Let's talk about Twitter. Twitter is a very confusing social media for most people. Most people don't understand how Twitter can be beneficial for them. Because what happens is you put something up, you tweet something, nothing happens. It's as if you've tweeted into outer space or something, or a black hole of some sort. There is no response, nothing happens. It just sits there. Twitter, again, has gone through many, many iterations over the years. It's not what it used to be when it first came out. So you have to look at what happens on there today, and your strategy then has to follow what is happening there today, right? So today, what you have the ability to do very well on Twitter is to reach out to key people, to important people, and talk to them where you would not be able to get a hold of them before. Now, they might choose not to respond to you. They might choose to ignore you, depending on who they are and what's going on with their lives. But you have the ability to reach out to those people, whether they're celebrities, government officials, reporters, you name it, right? I've worked on many projects where I've sent emails out to reporters and I've gotten nothing back. And I've sent them one tweet and I've gotten a response, right? So it's the dynamic of who you're trying to reach out to is important. Plus it's public, right? So if you have we're in Canada. So if you have an MP or an MLA as a part of the government that you want to reach out to, they're not responding to your email. Sometimes if you publicly tweet at them and say, hey, you're not responding to my email, you're supposed to be my representative, you'll hear from them right away, right? But whereas when it's in email, nobody else has any visibility to it, right? So these are, you have to think about these things and see how you can leverage them. The other thing you can do is, if you have with Twitter, is you have the ability to see the followers of a certain account, right? So you can do some market research, some market analysis to see what's the demographic, who's following these people. You could go in there and start messaging those people. And I don't mean in terms of spam. Again, remember, I have to preface this by saying, don't you should never be forcing things down people's throats, right? It's good information. You put it in front of them. If they like to consume it, they consume it. If they don't, they don't. It's as simple as that, right? So it always, as we've talked about in the past, all of this, the way all of this works, if it only works if you have good content. If your content is useless, none of this really works, because you're doing all this work and people will come across your content and look at it and go, oh, okay, that's not something new. I already knew that, right? You want to have the best of your content on out there, so when people come across it, they're impressed by it and they want to consume it. And here's the key point: they want to continue to share it, right? So if you come across something that you find beneficial, you find that it could be life changing in one way or another, you immediately think of other people in your social circles that could benefit from that. And then you pass that on, you share that content. And that's when the magic happens, right? Up until this point, it's just work, right? It's just publishing content, posting it, nothing happens. The minute people start sharing it is where the magic happens, because now you've got ambassadors, right? You've got people who want to go out and they're waving your flag saying this is great content, you might benefit from it. In terms of SEO, that's when the magic happens as well. Because again, if you remember, I told you SEO has to do with links that link back, websites that link back to your website. The more of those you have from websites that are considered websites of authority in the view of search engines, the more backlinks you have, the higher your SEO value. And again, please, I'm summarizing this. Go back and watch the video that had to do with SEO. I'm just, as it pertains to social media, remember that every single time, every single tweet has a unique URL. Every single Instagram post has a unique URL, which means it's just like another web page. And if your link happens to be on there, then that's a backlink. And if you've got 20 people retweeting you, for example, reposting you, then they're increasing that, right? The number of those links are continuously increasing. So overall, the strategy becomes taking whatever content you produced and making that in smaller bite-sized pieces, right? So depending on the platform. So if you have your content, like we talked about, the best way of producing your content is to do a video. So you have a video. We talked about how you can get text out of that, you can get audio out of that. So all of that is still there. Then you come to your social media platform. So if you're working on Instagram, for example, you could have 5 to 7 different images that represent the topic that you talked about, and you post one of those per day. But you're constantly linking back to the content that you have, right? So if you remember, we talked about having the content for the month and then for the week, and then the daily stuff becomes the things that represent your content and are pointing back to that content. There are details regarding each one of this social media that I wasn't really planning on going into, because as I said, it changes. However, because we have a low attendance as well today, is what we can do is we can take questions and use those questions, go into details that I know, if I do know it, the answer to those questions. If not, then I don't, right? But because I don't really see a lot of value into going into detail, into depth of how each one of these social media platforms work, because they keep changing, right? It's not, this is, as I said, this isn't the intention for these workshops. Somebody watches this 3 months from now, they go, well, that doesn't work. They try to do it, that doesn't work, right? But if we know that, okay, I want to post on here and I want to include some text, then you can go and search and see, even on the same platform, like for Facebook, for example, I go and look at what is the latest image size that's optimized for Facebook before I go and use an image tool like Photoshop to cut the image up to that size, right? So for that reason, I really don't see it as a good investment of time to go into each one of these things and look at the details of how do we do this, how do we do that. There are thousands of free videos on any of these things that you want online that you could search for, and you can come up with, and you can do it. So what I want to do now, before we go to questions, very briefly, is I want to talk about social media as it pertains to Toastmasters. And if you're a vice president of public relations in a club, and you're looking at this series for that purpose, how do you use social media for your club in particular, right? That's important. So the number one thing that has to happen is you have to create these platforms for your club, right? You have to go create a Facebook page, create Instagram, create LinkedIn, create Twitter, and whatever else you want to do. These are the primary ones, and YouTube. YouTube is also considered a social media. Then, when you look at a platform like Facebook, you could do a Facebook page and you could do a Facebook group as well. They're two different entities, two different purposes behind them. One is considered like your website. Facebook page is kind of like your website. A Facebook group is for community building, right? Think of it as having like an environment for you and your Toastmasters club, the rest of the club to do group chat, for example, right? So that's an environment where you can do that. Over at LinkedIn, you have a very similar situation. You have a LinkedIn page, and then you have a LinkedIn group where people can, talk to each other. For Instagram, it's simple. You just have an Instagram page. You have the ability to link your Instagram to your Facebook. And then that way, when you post to one, it posts on the other as well. You could also, through all of these almost, you can link them up. So when you do something on Facebook, for example, a tweet is also sent out. I don't personally recommend on doing that. I generally recommend you post to each one of these platforms individually. It doesn't take that much extra time. The reason for that is the captions you write, the hashtags you use, the way you use these on each one of these platforms is a little bit different, because the audience also is a little bit different, right? You could use the same image, for example, and post it on LinkedIn versus post it on Facebook versus post it on Instagram versus tweet it out. But the description that you write can be very different based on the audience that you're targeting on there, right? LinkedIn is a very professional audience. So going back to the water example, maybe you put something like increase your performance by drinking 2 glasses of water a day. I don't know, whatever. Like obviously it has to be the truth, right? It has to work. It has to work with your content. But what I'm trying to say is, think about the people who are on there and think about what they're more likely to share. Even if it was useful to them, right? If you're saying something about weight loss, for example, on water, they're probably not very likely to share it with their community on LinkedIn. However, if you made a case about water being good for your performance and increasing your vitality during the day, your level of energy during the day, I can see people on LinkedIn sharing that, because it's professional, right? It has to do with work. It has to do with how we go about our daily lives. Same can be said about other platforms as well. Obviously, a platform like Twitter has a lot of limitations. Right now, you're looking at uh, restrictions on character limits and things like that that come into play. LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram have those too, but they're a lot. The number of characters are a lot higher um, than Twitter. So for your club, once you've established all of these platforms, then I suggest you reach out to your club members and you give them these platforms and you ask them to join these platforms. Just your club members, first of all. Because don't forget, as a VPPR, you also have a responsibility towards your club members, right? It's not always outwardly, right? You have an internal communication that happens with your club members as well. So as part of that, you want to make sure they are on all of these platforms. Don't give them too much to do, right? So in my opinion, if you get someone to you have a Facebook page, you have a Facebook group, you have a LinkedIn page, you have a LinkedIn group, your Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok, and they're just you're overwhelming them, right? Typically, you're probably in the office of VPPR for a year. Take your time, right? Don't give them all the same thing in one go. Eventually, you can build. There's something called Linktree. You can get a link tree with all those links in there, and then send them that one link, so everything is there, and they have the ability to do it. So that's number one, right? Well, number two, let's say, right? Number one was establishing the platforms. Number two is getting the club members on it. Start with the club executive. They're probably a lot more likely to help you do that, and then go to the rest of the club members. Once you've done that, once you've got the majority of people on there, and it's okay, let me say this as well. Some people might be on LinkedIn and not on Facebook, or on Facebook and not on LinkedIn. You can't expect everybody to be everywhere. So that's okay. Don't stress over that. Once you've got that done, then you start sharing content. Sharing content as it applies to Toastmasters is our speeches, right? So especially if you're in a virtual environment, or if we've by the time you watch this video, we've moved out of this virtual environment, you could still do hybrid meetings, right? Where things can be recorded on Zoom and whatnot, depending on how things go. You have videos of speeches. So the speaker is your biggest promoter. Don't ever forget that, right? So if I have, I don't know, John speak today, John is the person that's gonna promote that video the most in majority of cases. You have a lot of people who are especially new Toastmasters that are very shy, and they don't necessarily want to share this with their community. But usually what happens is we're proud of the work that we've done. We've done a lot of work in preparing the speech. We give the speech and it's recorded. And now if it lives on social media, it's easy for us to share it with our family members and coworkers and our community in general. So make it easy for them. When you put this up on social media, tag them. Again, it depending on what platform you're on, the way you tag them is different, but tag them, send them a shout out, right? So to ask them, hey, I just posted this for you. Would you mind sharing it with your community? And what happens is, once people have seen this, what it's pretty much inevitable that a person who starts in Toastmasters, they continue to grow, at least with their public speaking, if nothing else, right? Because we keep on practicing. So even if they do a table topic and you record that, it's a 2-minute speech. It's very consumable, right? It's not like this long-winded thing that takes 10 minutes, for example. You take a minute and a half to 2 minutes. You edit it very, very minimally, right? You don't need to do all that much. You can just put their name at the bottom of the video, and then you share that on social media. And what ends up happening is that video hopefully starts getting shared in that person's community, and then their community is going to ask them, compliment them on it, and those who are interested will come as a guest to the club. And that's what you need to be doing, right? We're trying to attract people. If you have events, the next session that we have, we'll talk about events, posting events and promoting events on social media. So I don't want to get into that, but you can have little little pieces of content that's promoting the event. Again, if you involve your club members in doing that, then you can leverage their circles to promote it, and that means that their circles will come to the club. It is a lot easier to use word of mouth. This is word of mouth marketing, although it is digital, but it's word of mouth marketing, right? It's the grassroots sort of, you tell your next door neighbor and I'll tell my next door neighbor, and they'll tell their friends, and people will come, right? This is as old as it gets, and it's proven time after time that it works, right? So my friends are a lot more likely to come to the club if they see my progress and if they see me because of the trust that I have, than if they randomly see an ad on social media for some sort of an open house, right? So that's the reason this works. If you do it consistently and purposefully. If you're just randomly, haphazardly posting on social media, it's not going to happen. It's like anything else. There has to be continuity. There has to be some sort of a system that you follow. So again, as a VPPR, whether you have something in place or if you are just sort of the very first person that's putting this in place, try and come up with a system, right? So in one of my clubs, for example, a new club that's just been chartered not that long ago, that's exactly what I am working on doing. I've created the platforms. I'm trying to get the members on it. Now the next step is I'm going to build a system, right? That I know exactly what needs to be done week after week. Our club is an advanced club, so we meet once a month in this particular case. So it's a lot less content. But if for a club that meets every week, there's a lot of content that's being generated if you look at even an hour-long meeting. So you take those pieces of content and you have a system of how it gets posted. I encourage you very strongly to document everything that you do, because the one thing with Toastmasters is you're not going to be around in that role forever. You're going to be doing something else, hopefully, right? You're going to go become a president. You're going to go become an area director, a division director, whatever growth that you have as you're moving on. The next person who's going to be the next VPPR needs to start where you left off and build on that, rather than start from scratch again and be like, oh my God, what's the password for this account? How am I going to log into it? Why do we have 3 Twitter accounts for this club? I'm laughing saying this, it's true. And I mean, I have other people, Janice is laughing on the video, because it's very true, right? We've dealt with this even at higher levels. But you need to document the thing and pass it on to the next person, right? So as part of the planning that you do to find your replacement, to pass on sort of the baton to the next person that's going to be doing this, make sure everything is documented. Start from the usernames and passwords, but then move on. What is the plan? What have you done so far, and what are the goals? Where are we going from here? And be outspoken about that when you sit down in doing club success plan with the rest of the team. That way it gets documented, and hopefully, even if the next VPPR is not as diligent as you are, there is the club president that has seen this and can share it and say, can you just follow this plan and guide them through it. So That continuity needs to be there. And I assure you, if this is done in succession for like 2-3 terms, then you have a very rich social media platform. Some of the clubs that at least we have in our district are older clubs, and we've have members that have been around for a very long time. They're not necessarily very savvy with social media, and they don't necessarily want to learn either, right? But I see that as an interesting challenge, because a lot of times that could just be fear, right? Fear of not knowing what it is, fear of sharing too much on the internet, various fears. Why not take opportunities to educate our club members about these things? You know, take a speaking slot and talk about the value of social media. You know what they do on a daily basis, a lot of them, as a profession. Maybe you can show how the digital world and social media is beneficial for them in their professional lives, right? Because then when you ask them to get an Instagram account, they're less resistant, right? And that way you've actually done some community service as well. You've helped people close that gap and start using social media for their own benefit. One last thing I want to share with you, and then I'll open it up for questions. For a business, especially a new business, even a club, and I'll talk about how a club is a little bit different. We've done this before, but I'll go over it again. At the very beginning, if you don't have any social media at all and you're trying to put your social media presence out there, it is less a topic of traffic, which is what I've spent all of this time talking about, and it's more of a topic of branding. Okay, so it is, you're, by the content that you're sharing your brand. So when people land on your social media, the graphics that are used, if we're talking in particular about an Instagram page, if you go and pull up an Instagram page of a business, and you just go on their page specifically and just scroll through the first, like, let's say 100 images that are on there, if they've done their job right, you should generally get a feel for what kind of brand you're looking at. You should get a feel for their products, their services, their mission, their vision. All of this stuff can be communicated. It doesn't always just have to be communicated through words, right? So because when people come and decide to follow you, that's one of the things they will do. They will look at the page and see what kind of stuff you share, and do I want to see that in my feed or not. At least people who look at this intelligently would do that, right? Maybe some other people just follow haphazardly, I don't know. But if someone wants to decide whether or not they want to let that content into their lives, meaning onto their social media feed, they're going to look and they're going to look at what it is that you're sharing, right? If you're constantly sharing messages that are maybe painful because of the nature of whatever your business is that you're doing, people might not want to follow you because that will bring them down, right? You have to think about it. You have to think about your branding. You have to think about the way you present your mission and your vision and the general goals of the company, right? And again, keep in mind the whole talk we did about audiences, your avatar, right? So if you, even through color schemes that you can use, you can turn some people on and you can turn some people off. So you got to decide, what kind of color schemes do I want to use? And at this point, if you have the budget, you're probably better off hiring a graphic designer who is an expert in this type of stuff than trying to figure it all yourself. But the reality is, a lot of times most entrepreneurs bootstrap to begin with. There is no budget to go do any of that stuff. And if that happens to be you, then you got to figure it out. It's either you put your time in or you put your money in. There's no other way, right? And then both have a cost. In many cases, the time is more costly than spending the money. So if you can afford to hire an expert graphic designer, do that. If you can't, then that's okay. You figure it out. But keep in mind that at the beginning, when you're sharing this stuff, it's important for you to figure out your branding, figure out what kind of stuff you want to share before you go in and do that. Even with video, which is something that was the topic of last session, the background that you use, how you show up, what kind of setup you have is important. If I was sitting on my couch over there and you could see a part of the couch with a plant behind me and all of that, you'd get a different feel than the way it is right now, right? So we're using a green screen today so that our videographer can use his chroma key and put whatever in my background. So I don't know what's going to end up being in the background when you're watching the video of this, but that's me intentionally leaving this flexible for the videographer, right? So he can do whatever he sees fit based on the audience and based on all the work that we've done, right? So even with your videos, then it is very important to decide what you want to do. With the caveat that I've always said before, and I'll bring it up again, what I just said should not become a limiting factor. You shouldn't be thinking, okay, I need to wait to figure out what this and this and this needs to look like before I go, because that goes into the category of sharpening my pencil and sharpening my pencil and sharpening my pencil, and you never do the work. Get started, do the work. Worst case scenario, you'll go back and delete whatever you don't want to have on there, and you'll clean up your accounts. So with that said, I am going to stop. It's 50 minutes straight of me just yapping away. I'm going to start. I don't see any questions, but I want to open it up to questions for people who are live. If you want to put it in chat, or if you want to unmute yourself, I'm going to turn it back to Yuri so she can manage that part of it.
Let me first of all ask you one question, the only question that I have seen up to now. And it is you mentioned something like that already. How did you, or what do you think about consolidating all the links with the example that you gave of Linktree?
Yeah. So it depends on how we're using it, right? If we want to have a link tree to get that information across to people, so we want to send them one link that just has everything on there, Linktree is very good. But that is usually the case for an entity that doesn't necessarily have a website, right? On your website, you should have all these links. So technically, you should be able to send them the link to your website and everything should be on there. But if you don't have a website, then a link tree could serve. Or if the example I gave of trying to get the club members to go join social media channels, it might be easier for them if I send them one Linktree link with a direct link to all of the social media. Then if I send them to the website, even if it was ready, they'd have to go in, find it, and then individually click and then come back and click. So it's just, you have to think about what's easier for people. In general, for people, I mean for your consumer, for the people who are on the receiving end of it, not for yourself. In general, if you have a website, then I strongly encourage you to send people to your website and have everything ready on your website, because technically there are so many things to do on that website, and you don't want to take that opportunity away from your audience.
Perfect. Does anybody else have any other questions? Marian, sorry. I should know better by now.
Fine, that's fine. That's totally fine, Yuri. Thank you for taking my question. Thank you, Zhamak, for imparting your knowledge and information on on this interesting topic. I have a question regarding strategies. Today, you talked a little bit about strategies, and you also talked about mission and vision of the company.
Yeah.
My question is, imagine I am an entrepreneur, I am a small business owner. I come to you and I ask for some advice regarding social media. How would you instruct me to set my strategies? Let me say that what I assume, I think that first I have my strategic planning, and then I have my social media planning, social media strategies. How should I get there to achieve those business goals of mine? On the other hand, I, as a small business owner, I would like to avoid that constantly sharpening my pencils. How do you see, how important do you see the role of strategies when an entrepreneur, a small business owner, wants to set their social media strategies? Would you advise them to just start and go and learn on the way, or you instruct them to first sit down, set their social media strategies, and then based on that, they choose the suitable platform for themselves and then continue the way? I hope that my question was clear.
Yeah, thank you. So I think you're asking me if I want to summarize it, the balance between strategizing and sort of jumping in and starting to plug away at it. It's a difficult question to answer. I'll give it a shot. It's difficult not knowing the rest, right? It depends on whether you're talking about a mature business, if it's a business that's just getting off the ground, what kind of work has been done versus not, right? But I have been in this position before as a consultant many times, and the business owners do not like hearing the answer to it, usually. So here's the very first thing I ask people to make sure they've done is to have done some work on their client avatar, right? Because if you haven't done that, everything else that you do could potentially be useless. You just don't know, right? You're kind of gambling. It's like a shotgun approach, right? You use a shotgun rather than a laser focused type approach. So I'm going to assume in answering that question, your question, that work has been done, right? So the business owner has done that work. The question isn't about that. It's about social media, right? So my advice would be sit down and at least spend an hour and a half on coming up with a strategy of what you want to do. You don't need to spend days upon days coming up with a strategy. Then use that strategy to start moving forward, and then keep on adjusting your strategy as you move forward, right? So in my opinion, going in without any strategy whatsoever is a waste of time. So if you can take a little bit of time and sit down, and I mean, in an hour or 2 hours of time is really not that much in a grand scheme of things, right? So you want to sit down, have a minimal strategy, at least how many times a week, a day am I going to post? Where am I going to post? Your content, again, this is assuming the content is being generated, right? Most likely, I'm willing to bet that's where they're supposed to start, because they don't have content, right? And if you don't have content, it doesn't make sense to post anything. With majority of business owners, they take social media as whenever I have time, I'll do it, unless they've seen some results, right? So they'll take this approach of, oh, okay, well, on Friday, I'll post something on Instagram, right? If they don't have time and they'll forget and they get busy, remember, most of business owners, small business owners, are spending 80% of their time firefighting, right? They're dealing with whatever is just a reactive, right? Instead of proactively looking at things. That's the nature of being a small business owner, unless you get a management consultant or someone to come in and change a lot of things. They just operate, right? So their instinct is going to be just operate, just post. I'm going to take a picture of something and post it as soon as I can, right? So to answer your question, again, I'm just summarizing it, is if your avatar work has been done, if your content strategy is clear and you're doing your content, then spend a little bit of time, not a lot, figure out your strategy for social media, and then start plugging away at it. However, if you don't have a content strategy, I would start there, right? So if I walked into a business right now and they asked me the question you just asked me, I would look at where they're at, what they're doing, and I would not stop what they're doing because they've been doing it for a long time, whatever it is they're doing. Let's say they're posting one image on Instagram a week. Let them just continue. We'll just continue doing that. In the background, we'll do the avatar work. Then we'll do the content work. And then we'll slowly start increasing the social media presence in the right way, right? So maybe we'll unfollow whatever accounts that are not necessary, right? And there's a lot of details with each one of these platforms that you can go into that I didn't go into today. Like, who should you follow? How should you interact with these people? Those are details in terms of usage of the platforms. But the general thought process behind it never changes. You want to share good content. You want to reach out to the right people, and then put the content in front of them in the hopes that they will continue to share it. Hopefully, I answered your question. Oh, I love that question from Deborah. All right, Deborah, would you like to unmute yourself and ask, or do you want me to just jump in and answer it?
She doesn't have a video on.
Okay, that's all right.
Okay. Oh, sure. Okay. The question is, well, we do Zoom recordings every week, and we're not doing anything with the recordings. We just put it up, share it with the members. So what's the best way to leverage it?
Mm-hmm.
And if so, what app would you use to edit the video to leverage it? Right now we have a Facebook page, and we have maybe 70 people on it, one view a week.
Very good. Okay.
All
right.
Very cool view. And we have a YouTube channel with really nothing on it.
Okay, so this is a very good question. I'm glad you asked. First of all, you're sitting on a wealth of content. If you're recording these things and you have them, you have so much content. Let me ask you, on average, how many speeches per session would you say you guys do in a meeting?
2.
Okay, and how many table topics on average?
4 to 6.
Okay, so right there you have about maybe 6 to 8 pieces of content, if nothing else, right? So if you take into account the Toastmasters toast, for example, that's another one that's a minute and a half or something that you can use. But so that content is all there. Depending on how you record your Zoom recordings, if it's in gallery view, it's a little bit more difficult. If it's in speaker view, it's easier. You want to start using a video editing tool. The simplest ones, if you go back and watch the session I did on video, you'll get a better grasp of it. But just to answer your question today, if you're on a Windows machine, Windows computer, it comes with Windows Movie Maker for free, or you can download it. If you're on a Mac, iMovie is available for free. So those are both free tools. You don't have to pay for them. There's also tools that you could use your tablet or your mobile device to do this, although it's a little bit more difficult if you're taking a whole meeting and you're trying to chop it down. But basically, you'll edit each of the speeches separately, right? So you take your entire Zoom meeting and then you'll come out of it with the speeches and the table topic speeches, at least, right? Although your evaluations are also speeches, if you have amazing evaluators, evaluation is a speech. You could, like I said, you have, the Toastmaster give a toast, that's a speech. So you got to look at what you have, and then you start to chop that up into small pieces that you can share, right? Then you share those on your YouTube, right? So you upload all of them to YouTube. Make sure you use the right keywords and title and description and all that stuff. And then you can upload that same videos to Facebook as native Facebook video, right? So you don't take the YouTube link onto Facebook, but upload it to Facebook, right? So now the challenge becomes, so once you've done this, you have a lot of content, right? Then the challenge becomes, how do I get more views on this, right? Let me ask you, does your club have a guest list, like previous guests that have always come to the club?
Well, I set up an opt-in, a MailChimp opt-in. So
Nice.
we have like everyone, all the guests' emails and names.
Perfect. So what you could do is you think about the frequency, maybe bring it up with your club executive, but at least once a month, at least, if not more frequent. My personal opinion is more frequent, but a lot of people disagree with that. At least once a month, you can write an email, short email, and put links to these YouTube videos on there so they can go watch it. These are guests that are no longer members, right? At the end of the email, I say, wouldn't you want to be a part of this amazing club every single time and have something they can click on for them to become a guest and come back, right? So that's how you attract people. But with you having the ability to share this content, remember that stage that I told you about getting your members onto these social platforms. If they're on there, you share the video with them, right? So the step by step is you edit it, you get the pieces of content, and you start to share it, whether it's through email, WhatsApp messages, whatever. It doesn't matter. Get the videos out. Get them to be viewed. Once you start to do that, you'll slowly start to see engagement, and members will get excited about it, and then they'll do more and more.
Okay, great. The only thing is, do we need to ask permission from the people? Because we can't just put their videos out.
Yeah. So what I do usually is our club knows that the videos are going to be used for marketing purposes. They're going to be out there. So if someone does not want to be recorded or does not want the video to go out, they'll let you know. So you can take ask your club president for some time next meeting, and just say, hey, this is a strategy that I'm going to be using. If anybody does not want their videos shared, please let me know. I won't share it. It would be very beneficial for the entire club. And look, in majority of cases, people want their speeches to be heard. That's why we speak. Right? So the more we get this out to people, it's like an artist, right? An artist draws something, doesn't hide it in a closet, right? Or an author who writes a book wants people to read it. That's the whole point, right? We've got something from inside of us coming out. So very rarely you'll find people who don't want their content, their speeches shared. If they're competitors, it's very possible they don't want to give away their secrets. So speech competition competitors. So that's one possibility. The other possibility is someone who is self-conscious still about themselves, about the way they speak. And if you have a mentor in your club or a more experienced VP Ed, for example, they can work with those people to start to get that muscle exercised. We all hate, I don't know if any of you, the very first time I heard my own voice recorded, I was like, oh, gee, what is that, right? But you get used to it. You just, I've done at this point, I've done so many videos, and my videos are everywhere that I don't even watch it again. I just cut it and share it, right? So it just depends on the person, and it depends on what their inclinations are. But I think in majority of cases, you're going to have a positive outcome, positive result.
Okay, great. Yeah, we had tried that because we've been posting on our Facebook page for years.
Mhm.
Like every week we share some tip about public speaking, but there's nothing happening. Like we've not
Yeah,
got a single person interested through our Facebook
yeah.
page with all the
So
work that we put in.
with that one, people, again, your team should be sharing it. That's probably one of the reasons, right? So start with your executive first because they're more likely to chip in. Just say what I do sometimes is we have a group chat with our executive, right? If I post something, I'll take the link of that and I'll throw it in chat and I say, can you guys give it some love? And then if they have a Facebook page, if they have an Instagram page, it's up to them. You can't really force people to do it, right? But if you start from your executive and then slowly other people will join and do it until it becomes club culture, right? Until that's why I was talking about passing the baton the right way, because if that continuity there is there, eventually it becomes a part of the culture of the club. And then they just do it. They expect it, right? They look forward to it. So if I speak, I am actually anticipating my speech being posted online so I can share it. Right. So hopefully that helps a little bit.
That's great. Thank you, Jamak.
My pleasure. My pleasure. What else do we have? I saw this thing jumping. So
We
let's
have
see.
some chat here. Okay, how do we sound? Sorry.
Hi. My mom says that if you post on the D96 Facebook group, there's a good chance I'll share it with the Facebook page as long as it's relevant content.
Awesome. There you go. Yeah, that would be very helpful. You get a lot of eyes on that. Let me see. Let me read what Yumiko says. I found it very interesting. I don't have any profound questions. Okay, so she's looking for you already shared the playlist. All right, and then Ellie, what does she say? Okay, so that's
Ellie
a different.
lost
It's not
only
really a
5
question.
minutes of the.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
to do with.
Don't worry.
It was weird. I tried getting in like two or three different sites and they all showed tomorrow. And then when I'm on my iPhone and when I checked the computer, I've got my computer open too. It shows one today and one tomorrow. And then the one today, I open it up. I go to Zoom, I register and then I go to Zoom launch and it still shows up as tomorrow, which is really weird. So that's why I was late today.
That's okay. That's
Okay.
okay. We just there's another workshop tomorrow, so it was just a bit of a. That's okay. It's
just happened to
recorded,
be
so you
like
can
that.
watch
I
it
mean,
later.
so.
Yeah. Thanks for
Yeah.
being here, Ellie. Appreciate it.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. I just want to share real quick if there are no questions. Are there any other questions?
I was going to ask you, can you do a brief of how to do that? The link, what was the
The
name?
link tree?
The link tree.
Let me see if I can.
A quick example of how to do that.
Yeah, I don't actually have an example of it, but I can show you. And I don't have an example of it, but it's basically here. This is the website. Let me share. Okay, let me know when it's up. All right, perfect. So this is the website. It's linktr.ee. I'll put that in chat. And then, you got to sign up and you go through it. Let's look at pricing. It's probably for free. You can do a bunch of stuff and then you got to pay to do. Yeah, so the free one gives you unlimited links, QR code, video links. And then this other stuff is like, it's going to give you icons and all kinds of different things for $6 a month. It's not bad. basically the idea is you send one link and it has everything in there. And I like, for example, some people use that on their Instagram profile instead of their website.
Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
So instead of my email signature with about 5 different links to different places, this
You
one
could
link.
You could use that, yeah. But with an email signature, there are companies like this that allow you to do a really nice signature with like little icons of, you know, Instagram and Facebook and whatever. Visually, that's more appealing than having a Linktree link in there. So you may want to do it that way. I think, is it stamp something? Hold on. Emails. Is it YStamp? Yeah, this is it. So this is an example of one of the companies that does that. You see, like you can build a signature like that, which is really nice. And then, you know, these are all clickable. It's basically, it gives you design it, it gives you an HTML code. You take the HTML code, you paste it into your signature, and boom, voila, it's done. You can pick the color. You can. It's really cool. But again, I don't know what you can get for free versus, you know, what you have to pay for. So this says $5 a month. I don't know for what. I don't know if there's a free version or not, but you can check it out. I can put the link for this in there as well in the chat for your signatures. But the link tree, as you saw, also gives you a QR code, right? So a QR code is really cool. You could post a QR code somewhere, and, you know, maybe on a piece of paper that you happen to post, you know, at an event or something, and people can just go there and they'll have everything that they can deal with. I want to show our Advanced Club website for Deborah, just to see how far you can take that idea. So this is Inspirational Speakers, Advanced Toastmasters, and this is our website that I've been working on for, I don't know how long on now, a little bit at a time. I've been plugging away on it. But you will see these are basically videos. There's Mariam. Videos of us speaking, and they're on YouTube, but they're all here, right? They're all on our website. Once I get somebody to our website, and I have them by category, there are 5 to 7 minute speeches at sessions. Shorts are like table topic type stuff, right? But in our club, we do short stories, so that's what that is. And then this is a category, why did I join this club? Is just something that our club executive decided to do. But the point is, each one of these is a YouTube video, right? So if I click on this is a YouTube video that I've actually embedded on here. And you click on it, it plays, but the count on YouTube goes up by 1 if we play that, right? That's it. I just wanted to show that as an example of you can continue to build on it, right? It's not just done on YouTube and then you're done. You can do a lot of different things once you've put the video on YouTube. Any other questions?
I don't see anyone.
Okay.
Jamak, is that built on a blog page? Is that set up like a blog?
Yeah. So this is on WordPress.
That Deborah talking?
Yeah, that's yes, that's me.
Yeah. So this is built on WordPress. Again, I've done a session in the playlist on how to put your website together. It's done on WordPress, but the theme that I chose was a theme that's video centric, basically, because I knew that's going back to Mariam's question about how much strategy do you want to do. That was a part of the strategy, right? Without the strategy, I would have just jumped in and did something. But the strategy was to have the website be all videos primarily, with whatever content goes under the video. So that's why I chose that theme, so people can just play it on right there on the page, rather than having to click and have something else open up.
Have you looked at what the result is with what you've put on your website? Because I guess there's metrics around, okay, are people viewing, are people signing up, or are people contacting you? Like, what are the results from the videos you
So
put up?
right now, none, because this is just built. It's very, very new, right? But again, it's all in the playlist. If you look at it, Google Analytics is something you want to have on the website, and you want to look at the number of hits. And if I post a video of Mariam, for example, and I share the link, and all of a sudden our hits go up by 20, 30, then I know she's pretty popular, right? If on the same week we end up having a couple of guests show up and they're her friends, then we know it's working. If it doesn't, we just keep working at it and change the strategy if necessary. The thing is, that is a lot more significant when it comes to a business. But when you're talking about a Toastmasters club, there aren't many factors that you can change inside a club and inside the content that's generating in the club. That's the reason when we talk about the client avatar, I mentioned that every club has its own culture, right? Every club is a little bit different. We're not all identical and the same. So keeping that in mind, you want to attract people who will benefit from that particular club. You don't want to attract everybody, because they'll be unhappy, right? So those particular people, when they come across the content, they'll join. And if you look at the grand scale of things, Toastmasters International says a club that has 20 members is a good club. 20 members is not a lot of people. Attracting 20 members to something good, it should not be that hard. I suspect it's just we're not putting the work in. If we don't have that many members show up, right? We're just not reaching out and touching people and saying this is great. And my thought is the benefit. I'm very cautious using that word. The benefit that we got out of this pandemic is that we have so much content now. Before, and I did this 6-7 years ago in my home club in California at that point in time. You have to bring a tripod, you have to put a video camera up, you have to mic the speaker. There's just so much involved to get all that done. Whereas now people are already there in front of cameras with microphones, everything. You just hit record and it's done, right? So it is an incredible opportunity right now. And that's why I hope that our meetings, when we go back to person, there's a hybrid aspect to it. So we continue to do this. But you have all this content and you just start sharing it. I am 100% sure you will see results. You might not see results quickly, right? Depending on what that speed means to you, but you will eventually see results. And that this is the reason I brought that succession planning into this, right? Because you do so much work, and if you just drop it and say, okay, I'm done, and walk away from it, that is a huge disservice to the community, right? You want to literally hand the baton over to the person and say, listen, I'm going to train you for a month so you can just continue doing, because I've already figured all this out, right? And if that happens, like three terms in a row, I am 100% sure that club will never be the same again, because you'll get so much attraction to that content.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for watching this video on the Toastmasters District 96 YouTube channel. Subscribe to our channel to watch replays of our volunteer-run workshops, contests, and other events that are happening in our district. Like this video to show your appreciation for the volunteers who work hard to run these events. And remember, We are all volunteers. Thank you.